Live from the Average Joe Nation studios in St. Clair, Missouri. This is the Average Joe Podcast, a show that proves that in this crazy world, a combination of common sense and a C+ average is actually a superpower. Sure, he's crazy, but what if he's right? Please welcome your host, Damon Gilbert.
Let me ask you a question, and I want the truth on this one. How do you classify your relatives? And I know it's a weird question, but I've been debating this with people for the last couple of years. It just occurred to me. I don't know. What was it? It was when honestly, I don't know when it was. But I've often had this problem with how you classify your relatives. And what I mean by that is from a married aspect. For instance, my wife has seven people in her family, 7 siblings. Okay. Now, do I qualify those people as that would be my sister? Let's just pick one out. Let's say it's a woman, one of her sisters. That's a sister-in-law, right? To me, correct? That would be a sister-in-law. Now, how about the guy she marries? He's not my brother-in-law, right? I've never considered that to be my brother-in-law. He's a total freaking stranger married to my wife's sister. That's the way I look at it. I mean, now, having said that, if my sibling, my sister, marries someone, I would consider him my brother-in-law, right? Isn't that the way that works? I mean, I don't know. I've had opinions on both sides of the thing, but anyway, the reason I'm bringing that up is because I had he's not my brother-in-law. He's married to my wife's sister. And if you've ever met a person like this, and you have, believe me, he is the ultimate skeptic. All right? Nothing you can say, nothing you can describe, no opinion that you can have is valid in his book. I cannot stand people like that. Okay? He is, for instance, you bring up a topic. I mean, I see this guy maybe twice a year, and I dread every single time I see him. And there are people like this out in the world. They really are. I don't know how they get jobs. I don't know how they operate in life because they're so annoying. But he's the kind of guy when you're trying to think of something to talk about it, Christmas or Easter or whatever, and you say something like, "Wow, did you hear about such and such?" And I'm not even going to bring up a topic because it's a waste of time. The point is, he will say, "Well, there's a reason for that." Even if I'm making a point, he says there's a reason for that, or that's not true, or you're crazy, or you're a conspiracy theorist. You need to listen to me because I'm smarter than you. Don't you understand that? Don't you hate that? I absolutely despise that. I despise that. And what's funny is the guy, if you would talk to this man, and there are a lot of people like that out here. If you would talk to this guy, you would swear this guy from everything he says, the way he says it, his self-aggrandizing puffery, I guess is what you'd call it. You'd swear he'd been to a Ivy League institution and he had a PhD in something. I mean, he doesn't talk that way, but he gives you the impression that he's much smarter than you are, no matter what. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. I've had several of them like that. Now that I think about it, I've had several quotation marks brother-in-laws like that. But anyway, the funny thing is, this guy I learned after my wife and I had been married for a few years, just in passing. She said something about this particular individual. She said, he got his GED. And I was like, what did you just say? She goes, oh yeah, he never finished high school. He had to get his GED. Now, mind you, this is a guy who is he's in a powerful position in a union. Okay, he got that job because of his father. And the way unions work, and they are corrupt, don't get me wrong. I worked for one for 20 years. I know, believe me, they're corrupt. They're a necessary evil. I won't even get into that, but Nonetheless, he worked for a company that his father worked for. So naturally, they handed down kind of generationally, kind of like royalty, right? And he got this job, and he makes good money, and he's in a. I hate to go on about this because it's already been 5 minutes into this deal, but it is kind of funny. Have you ever heard of a pipe coverer? Have you ever heard of that? Now, I've heard of pipe fitters, people who put ducts in and all that, duct work on it, and that kind of thing. Never heard of a pipe coverer. That's what this guy. He works in that field. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying it is, but to talk to him, you would think that he had all the knowledge of the Library of Congress. Okay, and this guy's a genius. He says it's basically the impression he gives. Anyway, long story short. That kind of stuff just annoys me to no end. It really does. And there's nothing I hate worse than a skeptic. All I want is a little give and take, back and forth, open-mindedness. That's all I ask for in life when I'm having a discussion with somebody. Not to be put down immediately and dismissed like you're a complete idiot. And that irritates me. Not that I'm the smartest guy in the room. I'm not. But anyway. I'll get back to that later, another day. I was just curious if you felt the same way as I do about how they classify family members and people who are in-laws, kind of thing. So, anyway, that was much ado about nothing. What I want to talk to you today mainly is about the issue. I don't know if you saw this in the news, but Julian Assange, who is the creator of WikiLeaks, the WikiLeaks publisher. He's going to be extradited, a UK judge has ordered the extradition of him from Great Britain to the United States to face espionage charges. Okay, and if you don't know the story, which you must have been hiding under a rock, because this guy, he's been in the news I don't know how many, countless times. But I'll recap it for you real quick. He got a lot of information from an inside source in the military that exposed a lot, and we'll get into that here in just a second. And it really made some people look really bad. So the powers that be decided to trump up a charge on him and try to have him arrested. It had to do with sexual deviance. I don't know, the guy may be a scumbag. I don't really know. But these two women accused him of kind of a quasi kind of rape thing. And he immediately, because he knew they were coming after him, and he knew the United States was involved in this, he immediately sought refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy that's located in London. Okay, so and the way it works, he chose Ecuador because they have an agreement with the United States. Basically, he could not be, or Britain as well, he could not be extradited from there. Okay, so I think he spent 4 years there in a little bitty room with really no access to the outside. He still lived in London, but he was on Ecuadorian property. Well, fast forward 4.5 years, the United States makes a deal with Ecuador. They pay off, $4.2 billion worth of, they gave him a $4.2 billion loan. And immediately, the Ecuadorian diplomats invited the London police in, and they arrested him. And now he's in what the equivalent of Guantanamo for England. And he's been there for, I think, 2 years. Anyway, long story short, he's going, they filed for extradition, and a London judge is granted it. There's going to be some appeals made. But long story short, he's probably going to be coming back to the United States. That would be my guess. Now, mind you, this guy is in horrible health. He's had a stroke. They've kept him out of basically the sunlight for years and years and years. He's very ill. Now, what did he do? Well, I'll tell you what his crime was. He is WikiLeaks publisher. I don't know if you know what WikiLeaks does, but they are given information from people around the world, basically whistleblowers, and they publish the information that they were given on a site so that the whole world can see it. I don't see anything wrong with that. If you haven't done anything wrong, you got nothing to worry about, right? Well, apparently Assange's crime was he was revealing deep, embarrassing, sometimes deadly malfeasance by numerous actors. This included the U.S. government, the media, the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton machine, and Israel. Okay? WikiLeaks revealed the U.S. government's cover-up. Now, this is the interesting one. This is really why they're going after him, is because he revealed the U.S. government's cover-up of torture, cruelty, and the killing of civilians and spying on its own citizens. Okay? It exposed the Democratic Party for cheating and manipulation and the fraudulence of Russiagate. And you know who I'm talking about. Russia influenced the 2016 election. Okay? And the way this worked, the actual charge against Assange is he allegedly conspired with Chelsea Manning. Now, Chelsea Manning at the time was a guy, okay, and he was in the military, and he had access to these files that had all this laid out, okay. So he got with Chelsea, and who has now had a sex change operation. You can't make this stuff up. This is like, and I think they have done a movie on this. It's beyond belief what's going on. But anyway, Chelsea handed this stuff over to him, and Assange published it. That's it. He didn't make it up. He didn't steal the information. All he did was publish it. So I don't see what he's done wrong. They're trying to charge him with espionage. That's punishable by death. All this guy did was he was given information and he published it. Just like all other journalists do. They're given information, they write a story about it, and they publish it. They have since changed what they're allegedly charging him with, and they found out they're charging him with conspiring with Chelsea Manning to commit computer intrusion. Okay, because what they found out was if they charge him with conspiracy, then technically they're going to have to arrest a bunch of other journalists. One's from the Washington Post, the Guardian newspaper, the New York Times. They've all done this. They've all done the very same thing. Okay? It's the problem is that you embarrassed the Democratic Party and the Clintons. That's what's going to get you killed. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The U.S. government doesn't appreciate this either. And when you have all of the weight of those people coming down on top of you, this guy's in big trouble. I don't know that he'll ever see the light of day. But here's the problem. After all is said and done, this is an assault on the First Amendment, is what it is. Because the people in power don't want you to be, they don't want you to know the nasty things that they're doing. Ever. Okay? Let's cut to the chase. Julian Assange is not a U.S. citizen. He's not. So why is he being extradited to the United States? He's an Australian. WikiLeaks is not a U.S.-based media organization either. If the U.S. government gets Assange extradited, they prosecute him and they jail him, it's going to legitimize its right to go after anyone, anyhow, anywhere, anytime. Okay? They could call it the killing of journalism. It will no longer exist at any level. Right now, you cannot get the news from mainstream media. You have to go to independent sources to find out what's actually going on in the world. If they take him down and they prosecute him and they put him in jail, everyone else is at risk. Everyone. Anyone with a laptop and a common sense and a bit of interest or the ability to type will be a target. That's what this is all about. At the end of the day, they want him crucified as a message to everyone out there. You don't tell the truth ever. Okay? And in America, we're dead. If that happens, America's gone. First Amendment is one of the most important aspects of the Constitution. if you do not have freedom of the press at some level, your republic is dead. There's no way around it, because that gives the bad guys the right to do whatever they want, because no one's going to tell on them. This is very important. And I know it sounds like a boring story and everything. Julian Assange, I've heard of him. He's the creep that had sex with the two Swedish kids. Yeah, true. And that may actually be true. He may be a scumbag. I don't know. But at the end of the day, he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything that another journalist would have done. The only problem is he had insider information that he could prove was true. And it was, as a matter of fact, Chelsea Manning. Chelsea Clinton, that's a Freudian slip, wasn't it? Chelsea Manning was sentenced to 35 years in jail. And here's the interesting part, was pardoned by Barack Obama. Free and clear. Walk away. So if you're going to pardon that guy or woman, depending on what day it is, why wouldn't you pardon Julian Assange? He's just a journalist. He did nothing wrong. He printed something he was given. He didn't write this stuff. And I swear to God, I hold Donald Trump personally responsible for this. I really do. I know. Everybody loves Trump and he's wonderful and all that stuff. And he is at most levels. But in my opinion, he should have pardoned Julian Assange before he left office. That was a big mistake, and I hold him personally responsible for that. This is Donald Trump's fault right here. This 100% is his fault. This should have never happened, and he should have done something about it. Because I can guarantee you Biden's not going to do it. No, he's not going to do it. And I mean, it may be another 4 years. This guy may be dead. Even if Trump will get reelected in 2024, this guy could be dead. And he spent a large chunk of his life in jail over something that was absolutely not illegal. And I find that amazing that no one else is talking about this. You know, I mean, not that I'm the only one, but I mean, there are articles about it. But you would think the mainstream media would be on board with this. They'd say, hey, why don't we take another look at this? Because this is kind of our bread and butter, to tell stories that no one else knows. But they don't want anything to do with it because the shadow government's in charge right now. We're in a lot of trouble. And this is a perfect example of it. I hope he fights this. I hope he wins. I don't know that he'll get out of jail in England, but coming to the United States is a death sentence. Guarantee it is. Because if they can get to Jeffrey Epstein, believe me, they can get to Julian Assange. And he will magically, after all this time and all the depression he's been through, he will decide that he's going to kill himself with rolled up toilet paper in a jail cell that has no closed circuit TV, or it's not working or whatever. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. Guarantee it. He comes to the United States, they'll kill him. I'm surprised they haven't yet. As a matter of fact, in one meeting, I remember, this was back when Obama was in office and Hillary Clinton was his Secretary of State. And she literally said out loud that, isn't there some way we can have him assassinated? Now, this was while he was in the Ecuadorian embassy, and he was coming out onto the terrace, I guess, out onto his porch and talking to people down the street. And she literally said, is there some way we can have him assassinated? That's how bad they hate this guy. That's how bad. And that's basically the story. So anyway, I know this was kind of a boring one, but it's something I had to talk about, especially about the brother-in-law issue. I'd like to have your thoughts on that if you've got any. But anyway, I appreciate you listening, and we will talk again. I'll see you tomorrow for sure. So hang on for the news.
This is the Average Joe Podcast. The Average Joe Podcast.
All right, the first story I wanted to talk about, and it's something that's pretty important. I'm not a big Elon Musk fan, but he is setting up a move for Twitter within 10 days. Now, you got to take that with a grain of salt, because every time I hear him talk about SpaceX or any other of his many projects, he always says in the next 18 months. And that never happens. So we'll see what happens. He may actually have something going on here. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of his, and he's been known to exaggerate quite a bit. So we'll see. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I talked about this earlier. UK judge approves extradition of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to the U.S. Again, I don't know what's going to come of that because there's a lot of levels you have to go through before this is actually finalized if he wants to fight it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm kind of pulling for this guy on this because I don't think he deserves to be where he's at. I really don't. I got a question for everybody, and I don't know if you know this. It's something you need to ask yourself. Where did the New York subway shooting story go? Where did that go? We found out he's a black guy that hated white people and couldn't stand Trump, and it just disappears from the front page. That's it. Never heard any more about it. Same thing with the South Carolina mall shooting. Black guys involved, shoots 16, 17 people. He's out on bail the next day on $25,000 bond. What is this? What is this? Is this a organized, structured plan to make sure that every black person who commits crime is allowed back on the street immediately? I don't understand this. I really don't. And mainstream media is completely lost on this. They once they're told not to talk about it, folks, they follow orders. We don't talk about it at all. Yeah, this New York City guy. He was a black racist, is what he was. He's 62 years old. I mean, he was a nutcase. Now, did he have help? They said he had help. Haven't heard any more about that. Have you? Not even the indication anybody's even looking into it, which I find amazing. Yeah, I haven't seen anything. Help me out here if you have heard something, because I really haven't. Point me in the right direction. Oh, let's see. Oh yeah, Russia. My God, the Satan of the world, Russia. I mean, it's so bad now. They're not even letting tennis players that have no affiliation whatsoever with Putin. They can't even compete in Wimbledon in London. They're extra. So we're going to just. Isn't that kind of racist? I mean, at the end of the day, when you're taking an entire culture, I guess you'd call them ethnic group, and just banning them from everything because of one guy, I'd say that's racist. That's the way I look at it. But they'll never say that. They're just saying, hey, if you're Russian, you can't play. You can't run in the marathon. You can't play. You can't play in a tennis match. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't swim. You can't dance. You can't even play a Russian instrument. It's so bad. Yeah. They actually banned a guy from playing a Russian instrument in the band that he was playing it because I guess it's evil. See, you see where it's so over the top with this crap. That's why I start looking at the other side of it. And I'm finding out all kinds of things about Putin and his strategies in Ukraine. It's not what you think. It's not what mainstream media is trying to tell you it is. They're trying to tell you that he's trying to take over the world. That's not it. And he's not an idiot, believe me. He may be a madman, but he's not an idiot. And that's ultimately not his goal. You will see his goal. Well, right now he's focusing more on Donbass, which is that breakaway republic. I'm not going to go into it in depth, but I mean, this is playing out about the way they wanted it to. They say, well, he never got to Kiev, so he's lost the war. That's nonsense. That's nonsense, guys. It really is. Anybody that tells you any difference doesn't know what they're talking about. And I'm no military expert, but I can read what military people say, especially ones that are on mainstream media. Guys that are not allowed on mainstream media. It comes down to basically the same thing as when COVID-19 was rampant. And you started listening to the doctors on mainstream media. They're telling you to be scared, be afraid. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. And then you find other doctors who have been in this field for years and years and years. Sometimes that's their entire. That's all they've done their lives. And they say, that's not really true. And then they're banned from YouTube and Twitter and everything. I mean, it gives you the impression that somebody's trying to push a narrative, right? It really does. So when you get right down to it, here's what Russia was trying to do, okay? Putin invades. He's got a list of demands. Nobody wants to listen to him. He's been bitching about this since 2014. Actually, even before that. What he wanted to do was cut off supply lines. demilitarize as much of Ukraine as you could, then go back to his ultimate goal, which is to get Donbass and the other breakaway republic back in the Russian fold. That's what this is all about. So as far as Kiev, he doesn't really give a darn about that. He doesn't. He doesn't want to take over Ukraine. It's too much trouble, for one thing. He's focusing more on this area, and it seems like it's working. He's cut off supply lines. Once that happens, they're hard to replace. They really are. So he's really hurt him bad. So anyway, Russia rejects UN request for temporary Ukraine ceasefire for civilian evacuation. You'll notice how we put civilian evacuation there because we want you to feel bad for all the people who, and honestly, God, war is horrible, and they probably do need to be evacuated. But they use that as the main reason for even bringing this up. What the UN wants is for Ukraine and the Ukrainian army and the Kazakh battalion to be able to regroup in that amount of time so that they can come back stronger. Russia's not going to fall for that. Come on. All that means is we want you to stop so that we can get things settled and get back into the game. No, we're not going to do that. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't do it either. They can forget that. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I read this today, and you probably have too. They're expecting a record 2.1 million illegals this year to cross the border with the Biden administration in charge. Why do we not talk about that anymore? Why does the Biden administration... Is there a plan here? I think there is. I think they're trying to overwhelm the country with illegal aliens from all over the world. That's what they want. Because they'll be docile. They'll figure, hey, even if I'm living in squalor in the United States, it's better than the squalor I was living in Colombia or in Nicaragua or El Salvador. And of course I'll vote for the Democrats. I firmly believe that's what this is all about. Yeah, because Biden has literally turned his back on this. And he's actually multiplied the disaster. He's going to do away with that Title 42 law that keeps most of these people out of the United States. And he's defunded the Border Patrol. ICE they're wanting to do away with it. I mean, it's ridiculous. This is what they're wanting to do. It really is. I feel in my bones that's what this is all about. And you may have thought this all along, and I'm late to the party. Could be. But I think this is a blatant example of what the Biden administration wants done. They want to be taken over by people that they can control. That's what they want to do. They want the country to be taken over by people they can control. And speaking of Biden, I'm just going to go through a list of things that this was just in the news today. Biden to appeal ruling ending travel mask mandate. Okay, he's going to do that. He says we all need to continue to wear masks, even though the CDC said years ago that they do nothing. So again, control. That's what this is all about. Biden's going to cancel 40,000 student loans. Again, control. He wants that 40,000 people to, and it's going to be more than that. I guarantee you, at the end of the day, they're going to cancel all the student loan, and they're just going to chalk it up and put it on the national debt, that $1.5 trillion. They're just going to say, you know what, we're just going to eliminate that. You guys can all just forget about it. And I think that is, my wife actually owes a student loan. So, I'm against this. I'm against them eliminating it. I really am. It makes no sense. What does that say to the guy that actually paid his student loan off? What do you do to them? Do you refund their money? Yeah, it makes no sense. But Biden continues to wear a mask on Air Force One. Amazing. Let's see. Flow of fentanyl quadruples under the Biden administration. These are not all wins. I can't think of a win he's had. Biden administration to remove sanctions on 80,000 Iranian militants. 80,000 Iranian militants. He's going to remove sanctions from them. Why in God's name would you do that? I've never seen anything like this administration. Let's see. Biden, speaking of lunatics, he has confidence in Dianne Feinstein, the senator from California, despite reports of mental decline. I wonder why he would do that. because if they point out she's got mental decline, they're going to start looking at him. It's exactly what this is about. Biden hits a campaign trail, but no one wants him. And that's absolutely true. I mean, if you've got this the brother of Satan coming to campaign for you, you think that's going to help your turnout or your campaign in any respect? Of course not. Of course not. I mean, God knows what he'll do when he's on stage talking about you. He may forget your name. He may say something completely off make you look like a total fool. There's no good that can come from having Biden campaign for you. There really isn't. Let's see. Biden's going to roll back the Trump conscience protections for healthcare workers. Okay? Now, when Trump was in office, he passed I think it was an executive order saying, look, if you've got a nurse or a doctor who doesn't agree with abortion or whatever it is, and they say, hey, I have a conscience problem with this, I can't do this, you'll have to go somewhere else. Now they're going to make that illegal. They're going to say, no, you can't do the conscience thing. You have to follow through with the procedure despite your religious beliefs, right? Wow. Unbelievable. Let's see. Bottom line, 2/3 say Biden is compromised by ties to China. 2/3 of Americans believe that. And I think that is 100% accurate. As you see, some of the, you probably haven't seen it because it won't be on mainstream media, but if you look hard enough, you'll see that we're starting to release a lot of the stuff that's on Hunter's laptop. I read a letter today that's pretty much incoherent, but him and his dad didn't get along real well. He blamed his dad for a lot of things. Unbelievable. If you get a chance, look it up. Let's see. Ooh, yeah, this is a good one. Alleged economist Paul Krugman. Okay, now Paul Krugman, if you don't know, he's an economist. He's a Nobel Prize-winning economist who is a I guess he's a contributor to the New York Times. He says, now this is coming from him, he says, and this doesn't have anything to do with economics whatsoever, but he says that he's predicting violence, mind you, against mask wearers. Oh, wow. Man, I can see why you're a Nobel Prize winning. This is also the guy that when he predicted that if Trump got elected, we would be in a depression within 6 months. You guys remember that happening? Because I don't. It's the damnedest thing. This guy won the Nobel Prize for economics, and he said that. Yeah. So he's also saying that he's predicting violence against mask wearers. No, I'll tell you what you're going to see more of than anything else is when someone walks by and they're wearing a mask, the worst that's going to happen is the person who sees it will maybe roll their eyes or go, oh, geez, that kind of thing. That's not violence. Sorry. No, it's not. Most ridiculous thing I ever heard in my life. Let's see. Number 8. This is an interesting one. I'm sure you read about this, but it's interesting. It really is. Netflix lost 20% of its stock value in one day because their subscriptions are way down. They actually have less subscriptions now than they did last year. Now, why is that? Oh, I can tell you why. I believe Elon Musk said it pretty well. He said it's a woke culture, what did he say? Woke culture disease, maybe? I agree with that. If you turn on Netflix, you can flip through there. I don't know. And another thing they're having trouble with is people are sharing their subscriptions, and they can't figure out how to fight that. They can't figure out how to do that. I mean, I don't have a subscription myself. My daughter has. I use hers because I don't watch it that much. Because it's a viper's nest of of just some of the most disgusting stuff you'd ever want to see. Some of the stuff that they're putting out there. I mean, if you don't have two gays on a show, we watched one the other night. It had a lesbian, it had a lesbian, and not a theme, but they inserted it into the movie where they didn't need to. Now, why would you do that? Why would you make them lesbian lovers when they had absolutely nothing to do with the story? And that's just one example. You talk about child porn. I mean, on the verge of it. You've got violence. You've got some of the most depraved behavior you'd ever want to see is on Netflix. Yeah, and they're making new movies with it in it. It's not like it's old stuff that they're replaying. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't know if you've watched Netflix, but and if you've got a subscription, I highly advise you just have everybody else cancel it and you have one. Okay, that's what I would recommend for your family. Have one Netflix subscription and then just give it to everyone. Hopefully they'll go out of business, because that is a money laundering project is all that is. Why do you think Michelle or Michelle and Barack got $60 million for being on the board? They get paid on the backside. That's how they're paid off for what they've done. That's the way it works. They have no skills in filmmaking. What, are you kidding me? So anyway, I just think it's funny. Netflix has got some troubles, and I'm laughing about it. Let's see. Next story is CNN admits U.S. doesn't really know. Now get this. CNN is saying this. CNN, who loves this administration, loves the Biden administration, thinks they're wonderful, can't do any wrong, love them. Okay? CNN's even admitting the U.S. doesn't really know what happens to weapons sent to Ukraine. They basically go into a black hole. And here's the interesting thing. When they give these weapons to the Ukrainian army, stories I'm reading say they're selling them to other armies. They're selling them for money and rubles. They're actually selling them to the enemy. Can you believe that? So say I'm a Ukrainian soldier and I go into battle, there's a distinct possibility that my bosses, the people who run the military, including Zelensky and that whole crew, the stooges, they may have sold the arms that the United States gave them to fight the Russians. They may have sold them to the Russians, and I'm going to go out and fighting against the Russians and get killed by the very weapons that they were given. Imagine that. Imagine that. And CNN's the one admitting this. Now, mind you, if you've forgotten or didn't know, we've actually given $15.2 billion in military aid to the Ukrainian, the country of Ukraine. $15.2 billion. And we're giving them another $800 million, so it'll be a total of $16 billion by this time next week. Yeah. Smedley I don't know who's running this show, but this is the way war works. It's a racket. Yeah. Smedley Butler, a general from World War II, said it best. He said, war is a racket. This is a racket. And it wouldn't surprise me to find out that Biden's getting kickbacks on the sales of these to the Russians. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. Or Hunter, maybe Hunter's running the show from behind the scenes. He's helping sell this military hardware to the Russians. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. If I found that out tomorrow, I would say, well, I'm not surprised. Yeah. And finally, this story will blow you away. Justice Sotomayor, okay? Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor, who I have heard more than once said by many, many people, she's the dumbest person on the court. She really is. She's the most inexperienced, most unknowledgeable, and the worst person to have on the court. She wrote a dissenting opinion, okay, and that dissenting opinion argued. Now get this, argued that people familiar with FBI crime statistics, okay, not just means somebody that's well informed. And when you're talking about FBI crime statistics, you know where she's going with this. If you know anything about FBI crime statistics, she says that anyone familiar with FBI crime statistics should be banned from capital case juries. In other words, if there's been a murder and you may be on death row or receive the death penalty, you should be banned from these juries because you're a well-informed individual. And I'll tell you why. Because FBI crime statistics will tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, and it's not even close, that 12% of the population, the black community, commits over 52% of the crimes, especially the violent crimes, in America. Okay? That's all it tells you. What can I derive from that statement? Well, she's saying it causes racial bias against the defendant if he's black. Well, that may very well be true, but if you only represent 12% of the population, and actually it's less than that, because you figure that half of those are women. So let's say it's 6% of the population. Basically, that's what it boils down to. You're talking about 6% of the population commits 52% of violent crime in America. Yeah. I don't see that as racist. I see that as a statistic, and that's all it is. Does it tell me that the guy that's on trial should receive the death penalty? Not necessarily. But that in itself tells you where she's coming from. And she is by far the dumbest judge on the Supreme Court. That opinion alone tells you everything you need to know. So anyway, that's all I got today. I hope I didn't depress you too much. It was not my goal. The subject I had today, I know was kind of boring, but at the end of the day, I just wanted you to know it. So anyway, we will talk again tomorrow. And remember, it's, what is it? It is April 20th. It's cold outside too, by the way. What is it? April 20th, and it's cold outside. And Joe Biden is by far the worst president in American history. Let's go, Brandon.
As always, thanks for listening to the Average Joe podcast. Be sure to check out our website at www.averagejoenation.media and follow us on social media. Remember, if you haven't told all your friends, you're wrong.